everyone, how's it going? It's That Nerd Ryan here, and welcome to our Merry Christmas, sorry. Welcome to our Marvel Chronological Rewatch, which worked out perfectly because we're covering the Christmas movie Iron Man 3 today. So, I will be honest, Iron Man 3 was the first Marvel movie I was actually super hyped to see. I missed out on most of Phase 1, only seeing Iron Man 2 and Avengers in theaters. And when I saw Avengers, I only really saw it for Iron Man. Back then, that was the only character I cared about, which is why he's like my second favorite superhero now. But yeah, I was excited to see Iron Man 3. And I have to say, it honestly holds a nice place in my heart. I know a lot of people have gripes with it, but I honestly kind of have a nostalgia feel for it. So, for the plot synopsis, this takes place after Avengers. It's the first one that takes place after Avengers. Tony is suffering from PTSD. He is coping by making a bunch of suits. He's up to the 42nd suit at the beginning of this movie, which is kind of a prototype of what we get in Endgame, of a mobile, easy to put on armor. Basically, the suit pieces fly to him from wherever they're at. He injects himself with little beads to be able to call them to wherever he needs them. But yeah, so he's having PTSD from this, and then basically what happens is there's a new terrorist group called the Ten Rings, which we'll talk about them way later in a more serious tone. But they're headed by the Mandarin. Again, we'll talk about the actual Mandarin in the way future. But anyways, so the Mandarin is kind of basically blowing up certain areas and taking claim to that, or at least it seems so. Also, Rhodey is now working under the government as the Iron Patriot in a red, white, and blue suit, which is not Norman Osborn, but that's okay. So Tony's security guard, Happy Hogan, kind of starts tracking down this this buyer named Aldrich Killian, who is trying to sell something called Extremis, which is supposed to be like a cure-all drug. So he follows Killian's bodyguard, who ends up giving this drug to somebody, and that person ends up exploding at the Chinese theater. And then the Mandarin takes claim to that. So we're already seeing something going on here. Due to Happy getting hurt in the crossfire, Tony threatens the Mandarin, gives him his own address in probably one of my favorite MCU scenes altogether, and then goes home and tries to solve the scene where he meets a girl that we actually met at the beginning of the movie, which was in 1999. They hooked up with on New Year's 1999. And she's trying to warn him about the Mandarin coming, where the Mandarin attacks his house and nearly kills Tony, who runs away to, I believe it's Tennessee if I remember right, where he meets a kid named Harley Kiner, who kind of helps him, one, humble himself, and two, get through his anxiety and PTSD, and helps him solve kind of what's really going on. In that everybody's searching for Tony, and Iron Patriot is searching for Mandarin, and they end up Tony ends up kind of getting attacked at a bar by one of these extremist soldiers. After taking her out, Tony realizes that he needs to go and find the Mandarin, which they find out that he is basically in Florida. So he travels down there. Rhodey also gets captured by Extremis, I forgot to mention. So he's kind of stuck down there too. They're trying to get his suit so they could get close to the president. Tony doesn't use his suit, but uses his mind to infiltrate the place and find the Mandarin, who's just an actor named Trevor Slattery. And basically AIM, which is the creators of Extremis, were giving him a bunch of like boats, money, drugs, everything, just to play this Mandarin character. And it turns out that what AIM is trying to do is kind of take over the world out of petty revenge for Tony turning down Aldrich and the girl on New Year's for their like idea of this weapon / drug. So the girl ends up getting killed by Aldrich Killian, and Tony suits up in the new suit and goes to kind of stop the next terrorist attack, which was taking the president off of Air Force One and crashing Air Force One, because they did hack into Rhodey's suit and they went onto the plane, and Tony goes ahead and goes and saves the plane, only to find out that the Mark 42 was being remotely piloted, which was a great twist. But yeah, and the president was put into the Iron Patriot, where AIM was planning to kill him. Pepper also got abducted during this scenario, and she was like had Extremis put into her. I forgot to mention that Pepper was in this movie. I apologize. But yeah, she was captured and put with Extremis. Tony, to save both of them, brings out all 42 of his suits to fight these Extremis soldiers, which is really cool. Another great scene in the MCU. But yeah, so he uses all his suits to fight, and he's jumping through different suits and everything as he's fighting Killian. Pepper falls into an inferno and is presumed dead for about 5 minutes, then comes back because she has the Extremis in her, and ends up helping kill Killian, which how Tony does it is he puts the Mark 42 around Killian and self-destructs it. After that, Tony self-destructs all his other armors, gets surgery on his chest so he doesn't need the arc reactor, saves Pepper, and says no matter what, he is Iron Man. So, just to say this, back then, we didn't know if that meant if Tony's last gig was going to be Age of Ultron. I remember going home thinking, like, well, that's it for Iron Man. He's retired. He's got no more suits. Anything like that. But, obviously, he does come back. We get the Hulkbuster, stuff like that. But I remember back then, it was like, oh, wow, Iron Man's done. And yeah, that was a real shocker. But I did like the personal growth of Tony in this movie. It explains a lot of what he does in Phase 2 going to Phase 3. A lot of the mistakes he makes, a lot of the corrections he makes, stuff like that. This movie really does kind of set that all up. It sets up why he makes Ultron, why he sides with signing the Sokovia Accords, why he is like so prepared of making more suits. I think he's at like 85 in Endgame. But why he does all this is very well explained with Iron Man 3. And like I said, I am nostalgic for it. I will say the one gripe that I did have was kind of the anticlimactic Mandarin thing, and Aldrich Killian was a okay villain. But yeah, other than that, I really loved this movie. It had some of my favorite MCU scenes in it. So I'm going to go ahead and give this movie an 8 out of 10. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Merry Christmas. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, ring that bell, and follow me on all my social media down below. It's that Nerd Ryan. Signing.